You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
Hello and welcome back to Claret and Blue. We've got another wacky idea for you today. As often with our content at the moment, we kind of think of the titles first and then work out what the content will be after the fact. We've got a big spreadsheet of about 30 ideas. Well, we've got some great titles, but we don't really know what we're going to talk about. So Matt Kendrick, would you like to reveal this week's title and then I'll explain what the format is?
The working title that we came up with is Your
Nice.
Which that's the bit in the quote marks. I don't think we've quite sussed the back end of the title, but it's basically trying to find out kind of the rubbishist. Yeah, that's his word, isn't it? Rubbishist.
I think
is that
so.
a word?
Yeah,
the worst.
Yeah,
the crappiest Villa players from the last 10 years. Anyway,
it's what we're going to try and do is find an ultimate winner from the last 10 years who we think between the three of us is the worst player that's played for Villa in the last 10 years. It's not about the winner. There's 20 players here who are all very rubbish. It's the taking part that counts. They're all poor. They all deserve to be here. Originally we were just going to go through and pick a top 5, but we've decided to make it a World Cup of worst football players. So we've got 4 groups, A, B, C and D, with 5 players in each group. The winner and the runner-up from each group go through. They play each other in a quarter-final, then a semi-final, then a final, and then we'll find out who the worst Aston Villa player is from the last 10 years. But as we've just said, there's a lot of bad names in this list. So
yeah, if we can't decide, can we just do a really kind of random anagram?
So, do you want me to reveal Group A?
Yeah, go on. What we got?
So, I think this is the group of death, having just scrolled through it. We've got Joleon Lescott.
Boo!
Leandro Bacuna.
Boo! I'm not going to do it all the way through. That's enough now.
Stephen Ireland. Alexander Tonev. Grant Holt. That is a difficult group, I think. Very, very difficult.
Right, Lescott and Tonov. Next group. Did you want some chatter around this?
See, I think Bacuna gets in there for me. I would go Bacuna.
He wasn't that bad though, was he?
He was awful, Bacuna. He's one of the worst footballers I've seen in my time.
Come on.
Really?
Come on.
For me, come on. That's pretty harsh, man.
Really? Wow.
Okay, so with Bacuna, the Bacuna situation is he was all right until he spoke. So it's not his footballing ability.
Sounds like us, to be honest, doesn't
it? do we not remember? Do we not remember that back pass against Southampton in the year we went down? We just booted it back towards the goalkeeper.
But I think with Bacuna, there's a little bit of good, whereas there's other players, there's no good.
Like the free kicks, you mean?
There's no good at all.
I remember there being a lot of talk about, well, he's decent on set plays. I don't know what the stats are, but I only seem to remember him scoring like 2 or 3 free kicks. Like he wasn't that special at them.
But we're not trying to argue that he was really good.
No, I know that, but
just not that he was the worst Villa player of the last decade.
Maybe I'm forgetting how bad Tonev was. Or maybe with Tonev, it was because there was so much hype before he signed with all the YouTube videos and stuff, and he was just so disappointing.
What I will say out of this group is we are missing out Stephen Ireland, really. He should be for me, it should be Lescott and Ireland.
Do you think?
When you're selling James Milner, right, and you get Stephen Ireland in return, and he does nothing.
Yeah, but he got
fair.
Superman pants, hadn't he? And he got a car with big wheels, and he got a shark tank in his house, and he smoked a shisha pipe.
I saw him getting a tattoo once, and he was playing FIFA whilst the artist was kind of tattooing his back, and he was playing as Man City on amateur and scoring, passing to himself all the time to score.
Oh my God, that's the best story I've heard. That's very good. I love that.
Do you
he deserves to get
peer
praised
through
for
the
that.
windows of these places, James?
No, my mate was getting a tattoo, and he looks like he was bald as well, and he had a beard, so he was like upside down head. And they're both sitting next to each other, and they look like the same guy. And I was like, why is he playing? He don't play FIFA. Well, it was Stephen Ireland, yeah, and loads of Villa players go there. So it was just bizarre.
Listen, I'm not in the habit of defending terrible players or players who don't do anything in Claret and Blue when we're expecting much more from them. What I would say about Stephen Ireland, he was kind of the adopted child that nobody wanted, really, because he was signed when there wasn't a manager. Kind of O'Neill had gone, and I think Kevin McDonald was probably in temporary charge. Gerard Houllier quickly made it known that he didn't like him. Whether it was the fact that he played FIFA in tattoo parlours or what, Gerard just took an instant disliking to him. And I think he knew. I think he knew that a couple of years previously he'd been on the brink of a very exciting Manchester City team before they really exploded. and was the main man. Found out that Manchester City had kind of won the lottery, but he wasn't around to kind of enjoy the success. And I just think he felt displaced, to be honest. And
that's fair.
I don't know. Perhaps I'm cutting him a bit too much slack, because I remember seeing him at the Etihad playing for Manchester City. He's a very, very good player, which probably makes it worse that we got to see the worst of him, really.
Yeah, I think out of the five there, Ireland and Bacuna stand out to me as being the ones where Lescott as well, to be fair, now I'm thinking about it, where attitude was also a problem, or application was a problem. That, Bacuna wasn't, I don't think, talented. Stephen Ireland did have a little bit about him, but didn't apply himself and didn't look interested at any point. Bacuna, when it got to the stage that, again, we're going down and all the fans on his back, and he said some stupid things in the press and all the rest of it, again, I'm not defending him, but at that point he'd given up completely, and that's what stands out to me as things that kind of mark their card for me, that I don't like them for that reason. It's less about the footballing ability, it's just that I didn't like you as a person while you were playing for us either.
It's tough because you kind of, do you want to judge this on what they've said and what they've done, or their ability? Because if it's ability and application, it's probably Tonev and Ireland that go through over anyone else. Yeah. But then you think of like what Lescott said, or what Bacuna said, and it twists it. But I really think
old Grant Holt hasn't had a mention yet. Grant Holt is got
pointless.
He's got a way right in this group here. That he's actually not that bad compared to the others. His attitude is probably fine. He's just not a very good footballer. Not the right sign at the right time.
The only possible time you sign Grant Holt for a Premier League club is that moment when he's on the up. You certainly don't know when he's a spent force.
Yeah. To round up then, because we're on Group A and we're 10 minutes in, so I'm keen to crack on. I'm saying Lescott wins this group.
Have we actually? I know you want to crack on, but do we need to talk about Lescott? Do we just need to flash that tweet on the screen?
Yeah, the car tweet, the weight off my shoulders thing, the abysmal footballing ability. I mean, what else do you want me to say?
That's enough. He gets my vote, mate, to be honest. So if it was me, I'd have Lescott and Tonev going through.
What about you, James?
This is a really tough group, to be fair. For the sake of it, I'm going to go for Lescott as the winner because I think you kind of have to, and I'm going to go for Tonev.
Okay, so that's we'll go Tonev just by numbers. I would have gone Bacuna, but we'll go Tonev.
So Lescott the winner, Tonev runner-up, just for the purposes of this draw, yeah?
Group B, some interesting names. First of all, Ross McCormack, Thiago Ilori, who I totally forgot about, Andre Moreira, who I also forgot about, Simon Dawkins, who I only remember because of the turning the lights off at Bodymore Heath thing, and Carlos Sanchez, who's a left field shout from Twitter.
Is Sanchez a bit harsh to be in there? Was he that bad?
Yeah, Sanchez is brutal. That's brutal.
Do you think? He was rubbish as well, though.
I think he's one of those who've got that...
Everyone just says he's rubbish.
I think it's kind of scanning through these groups, there's an obvious bad one, and again, we've done it randomly, but we've done it quite well. There's an obvious bad one, and there's a semi-obvious, they're not that bad compared to the others. So I think Sanchez is he was bad, but he's not as bad as the rest there.
The thing I'd say about Sanchez is he probably suffers from, crap nickname syndrome, a bit like Ron Villar was Concrete Ron, and then had to be wrapped up in cotton wool all the time. Carlos Sanchez was The Rock. The Rock. He's more like he's more like a stick of candy floss than he is The Rock. Do you know what I mean? It's a very kind of seaside confectionery reference that I've made there, but. Yeah, I think it's a bit harsh to get him in there.
I just seem to remember him never being able to make a pass over 5 yards and always just being very frustrating. Always internationally, look decent, then comes back to Villa and it is poor.
Great hair, though. I mean, if you were trying to pick Villa players for a Jackson 5 tribute act, you'd have Carlos Sanchez in there, wouldn't you? And that's his one redeeming quality. But yeah, I think he's one that doesn't quite deserve to be in the list. But who else we got?
Ross McCormack. Talk to me.
There is absolutely no chance that he doesn't win this group.
I thought you meant he won the competition. Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue.
Well, what you got to consider is that Ross McCormack comes in. It was 10 to 15 million pound as a marquee signing, a leader, a captain, a champion, a marquee solid championship player,
a goal scorer.
He does not a thing in his Villa career. And I mean, he isn't helped by a managerial change, a tactical change, and the fact that Villa then decided to buy Codger and then Hogan. So they bought these 3 marquee strikers for the same price range.
Yeah.
The personal issues got on top of him, but it's almost like Sanchez a bit. They moved to Villa, they come in with a bit of a reputation, and then their career just declines.
Yeah.
Like there was just nothing. They moved to kind of resurrect it. So McCormack went to Motherwell, Nottingham Forest, and did nothing. It was only in Australia, where he looked kind of any bit near decent. But for the price tag, the reputation, the hopes pinned on him, Ross McCormack just steals this group. Runs away with it.
Thing about McCormack though, I'll be forever grateful to him for giving me one of my favourite intros that I've wrote, which I think it was something like this. Have you heard the story about Ross McCormack's massive gate? You'll never get over it. Which I thought that's a pretty good intro, don't you? I think that's quite good.
That is PQ. That is.
It is very me, isn't it? Yeah, it is very me.
So this gate thing, was it locked open or locked shut? Like, because has anyone ever explained it? Because they say it's broken. But like, was it locked open or shut?
Well, if it was locked open, he'd be able to get out, wouldn't he?
Yeah, but it's not about getting out. It's about could he leave his house with the gate open? Was that what he was saying?
Most of us normal people don't have gated houses, so we all have to leave our houses ungated. So he could have surely just get over it.
Footballers' houses get burgled like John Terry's one. There's that. Whatever happened there, someone left a present for him. Like, I can't blame him if it's locked open.
I think it was locked shut. I don't know. Who cares? It probably wasn't anything at all. I think
that's not even the thing, is it? Like, that isn't even the thing. It's just like the guy was crap for Villa, like absolutely crap.
Ross McCormack, he clearly had some personal issues, and
of course,
that's affected his professional life and his professional ability. I think Brucey dug him out spectacularly.
Yeah.
By revealing this story.
Yeah.
And listen, we're in the press, so we've kind of got a vested interest in people telling us interesting things, and kind of, if football was just what happened on a pitch on a Saturday and on a Tuesday night, then it'd be fairly boring. So we like the pantomime element around the sides of it, but I think it left him nowhere to go, really, both in terms of his Villa career and both in terms of anybody taking a gamble on him in future. I think it killed his confidence, and I think it killed any chance of him being an asset anymore. 12 million quid I think Villa paid for him. He was worth, from that moment onwards, he was worth 2 million at tops, and then the following 2 years reduced that to zero.
I'm already saying now already, he goes through as winner. The other names in the group: Thiago Ilori, Andre Moreira and Simon Dawkins.
It'd be a toss-up between Moreira and Dawkins, but at least I think Dawkins is a weird one because it's the injuries kind of knocked his career about, and then he moves to America and wants to get that break, and he looks all right, and it never really happens for him. But Moreira was odd. I just never got that signing at all.
No, same.
Wasn't he a Mendes signing? Wasn't it part of Mendes trying to kind of do? I think he did it at Wolves initially, didn't he? Throw a few duds there before he actually started serving up some top-notch players.
Be fair, like Wolves got Waitrose and we got Poundland when it comes to Mendes.
Well, exactly. The thing about Moreira. And this is a really random thing. How I always remember to spell his name? More and then IRA. I don't know why. Just that when foreign players come in, you have to learn to type their names, and I just used to break it down at the word more and then IRA. So whether I thought badly politically about him as well, I don't know. Anyway,
I'll never forget that video that came out on someone's Twitter.
Can you drop that? Can you drop that in here? It's a bit like when I have a kick around in the garden with my daughter, and you just say, "Well, I've got to let a few goals in here." Yeah. It's just like that. Just kind of half put your hand out and stuff like that. So
I think having thought about it now, he has to go runner up for me. It's just such a weird signing. When we did see him in those little snippets, there was nothing there, like just an odd signing.
And Dawkins is just he'll just forever be renowned for the lights are still on at Pottymore Heath, won't he?
Yeah.
He was condemned from the moment that Villa unveiled him in such a spectacular fashion.
One of my friends, Thiago, who kind of he's a football analyst.
You name dropping that Thiago Ilori is your friend?
No, not Thiago, but not that Thiago, but
one of my friends, Jolene's going to be really disappointed about being in this list.
Like, I spoke to him about Moreira when Moreira first joined, and he said he was really impressed. Like, he was really excited for us because it's like this guy's he said he's a very talented shot stopper. He needs game time. He's not the best with his feet, but this could be a really smart deal for Villa. And he knows his stuff. So what happened there, because that description of him doesn't fit with the video at the end.
Yeah. So we're saying Andre Moreira takes runner up out of this group.
Stick him in there. Stick him in there with Ross. Yeah.
Group C: Mika Richards, Nicholas Helenius, Jordan Bowery, Michael Bradley, and Charles Nzogbia.
Oh,
that's a tough group. That is.
That is Charles Nzogbia and Bowery, I think.
Really? You're not taking Micah Richards through to the quarterfinal?
I'm not going to take Micah Richards through to the quarterfinal for a variety of reasons. And that is because when Charles Nzogby came in, really hyped up. And he was a £9 million signing, right? So we paid money for him. I think we got Richards for free. And I know the wages were a lot, but with Nzogby, the wages are transfer free and just absolutely not delivering. Whereas at least Richards kind of tried for a little bit, whereas Nzogby just kind of floated around.
Oh, I don't know. I think looking through those names, Bowery and Hellenius are forgettable. Like, yeah, they're rubbish signings, but they just weren't around long enough to do anything that annoyed me enough. Michael Bradley, Matt Lynch sent me a photo of him as his. When I was asking for tweets, I asked people to send me their player, and obviously most people typed it out. Matt sent me a picture of him, and I looked at it and thought, I can't even think of this guy's name. He's that forgettable.
Dan, you didn't even you thought Villa beat Bayern Munich in the European Cup semi-final. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up again.
Nicholas Alanius is great because he'll forever be remembered for having his pants pulled down by Jan Vertonghen, wasn't he? In that League Cup game. That was brilliant. That was.
Did you ever read his account of why his time at Villa went wrong?
Oh, he was addicted to bloody painkillers and stuff, wasn't he?
He got a flesh-eating bacteria and thought he was going to die. Then he got his pants pulled down as well, so I don't think that helps.
That's not how we got the flesh-eating bacteria, was it? Who else is on the list?
Jordan Bowery. He was one of those classic Lambert signings, wasn't it? Where we've got no money and we're going to go young and hungry from a lower league and give them a shot at the Premier League, and he's again just did nothing. Yeah,
I'd go Nzogby and Bowery. Michael Bradley's a harsh one because he's actually a really good player. And I don't know. Do you have any information, Matt, on why he didn't play at all? Because it was a weird one. He went on to play for Roma, and he's like 150 times captain for the United States. So it's really odd.
Didn't he go on to become the best paid player in the States for a while?
Yeah,
I think he probably still took a pay cut from what Villa paid him, but I'm sure he did.
Yeah,
I just remember he played away at Man City, and Julio made a load of changes in the cup, and we got knocked out. Bradley, the game just passed him by, which was strange because you thought he'd come in and be a bit of an athlete and have a bit of energy and get around the place, but he was just flat. He gave the impression he didn't want to be there. I think he'd been lined up to come when he thought Bob Bradley was going to get the job.
Yeah.
When he thought his dad was going to get the job, and I don't know whether they were still committed to going through with that or what. I'm not sure. I'm putting Richards through, and I'm putting Nzogby through because they're both exceptionally well paid, and for various reasons they just didn't deliver. Although I did love that picture from Charles Nzogby when he was wearing a pair of curtains. In a dressing room at Bodymore once. That was great.
I think Nzogby is probably the winner. At first, I looked at that and thought Mika Richards was the standout. I think, like you said earlier, because there was some expectation that Charles Nzogby was going to be a half decent signing to replace, was it Stuart Downing, I think, from when we signed him from Wigan?
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
right.
9.5, 10 million. You kind of think, well, he's got a good, decent left foot on him, bit of pace, like he might be okay. And to be such a drop in expectations versus reality, we're paying him, I don't know how much the wage was, but I seem to remember it being a fairly high number, 10 million transfer for a fee. Yeah, I think he probably goes through as the biggest waste of space in this group. Mika Richards, again, I'd put through as runner-up just because, again, massively, decent expectations to sign him on a free transfer.
Yeah, well, listen, we can speak a bit more about him if he's in the next round anyway. Crack on.
Group D, we've got Angel Crespo, Danny Drinkwater, Yakuba Silla, Kieran Richardson, and Aaron Tishbola. Thoughts?
I could be tempted to put Drinkwater.
Wow, that's bold. A current player.
A lot goes on behind closed doors, right? I'm sure Villa players been fighting training because it's a contact sport, so people are always going to get kick off. But it comes out of Drinkwater, hits a current player as well, hotter, and that tops it for me. Oh, that really does top it.
Yeah.
But I think it is really harsh to include Drinkwater, but when he's lined up against those players, you think, yeah, they're all a bit rubbish or didn't play, but none of them has hit another Villa player.
Do you know the thing for me with Drinkwater? And I don't think... I think he was willing on the pitch, and I don't think he was quite as dreadful as people made out. Problem was, he was recruited to replace John McGinn, who's the all-action, super energy, kind of high-octane midfielder, box-to-box, your archetypal box-to-box who covers every blade of grass. And then you've got Danny Drinkwater. It's like the hare and the tortoise, isn't it? In one, I just think, what did we want him for? What was he there to do? Was he an improvement on anything we'd got? Really?
Yeah, I think the more you've spoken about Drinkwater, the more that's a fair inclusion. Again, when we signed him, we all kind of had a little raised eyebrow to think, well, he's not even playing for Burnley, so is this really who we need? We're paying him a lot of wages. He's not match fit. He's barely played. Then he gets into a training ground bust up, and you think, this is not turning out in any way. There's no positive here at all. Does he win this group just by default? Because he's a little bit worse than the rest. Angel Crespo, who again, a bit forgettable, didn't really do anything. I feel that's the little bit kind of shrug my shoulders, don't really care about him. Yakuba Silla had a little bit of... I seem to remember a couple of games where I thought, hey, he's not actually that bad.
Didn't we have this conversation the other week when I said that I kind of did some digging into the stats because Villa seemed to be more successful with him in the team, and then I checked out all the stats and he just happened to be complete coincidence because he was crap in all the categories. I think that, I mean, he got a great chance, and he came from a club called Clermont Foot, which was a great name for a football club, Clermont Foot. But other than that, I don't think he had a great deal to distinguish him. What I would say is Crespo potentially, because if we go back to the year that Villa were relegated in 2015-16, we're all getting super excited, weren't we, about this spending spree. The transfer committee of Hendrik Almstad and Tom Fox and Paddy Riley and Tim Sherwood delivered this kind of 9 or 10 signings. Was Crespo the crappiest one of the foreign recruits? Because a lot of the other ones who didn't do that well for Villa have gone on to reinvent themselves back across Europe. And, Armavi, Veretout, and who else? Idrissa Gana Guy, Traore. Do you know what I mean? A lot of them were actually very good players in the wrong place at the wrong time, whereas Crespo, I think, was a rubbish player then, and I should imagine probably continues to be a rubbish player.
Are we forgetting how bad Kieran Richardson was, though? Yeah. Kevin McDonald was playing him over Armavi.
The problem here is you've got a lot of players who are quite bad, but I think Richardson came in on a free, right? And he was crap. Yeah. Whereas Tishbola, like, you pay $5 million, he's meant to be the next big thing, and he only wants to play under Steve Clark because he knows him.
Who are we going to stick in?
I don't know. I think this is quite difficult. What do you two think? I'll put Drinkwater down as a winner just because we've found the best argument for him out of all the rest so far, so he has to win by default. It's the runner-up that I'm struggling with. It could really be any of those, and I wouldn't be that bothered.
I'd probably go Drinkwater for the reasons outlined, and I probably would go Tishbola because he unlike Moreira, there's not an easy way of breaking down his surname. And what I would also say is he kind of is the poster boy for that kind of, our plan to sign young and hungry players from the lower leagues. Yeah. And how it went wrong. There's ones we've had Matt Loughton who came in and did decent, and we've had Westwood who, despite splitting opinion, did okay. But I think Tishbola's the one who almost kind of, little fish in a big pond syndrome, just couldn't deliver on the hype. Now I know the hype wasn't his fault, but he just wasn't very good.
Nor was the hype that big, really.
Yeah, point taken. Yeah, he wasn't being proclaimed as the next Sid Cowens, was he, or the new Messi or something? He was just, this kid's supposed to be decent at Reading. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that probably swings it for me, because that was the start of that was the year we went down, wasn't it? As well, that was a Di Matteo signing that you come in and think, right, we're going to build a decent squad to get us back up. Tishbola comes in with a little bit of a reputation. We spent $5 million on this kid, and he does absolutely nothing, and then goes out on loan a couple of times, I think, and then eventually gets sold to somebody. I don't even remember.
Can I say one more thing about Tishbola? Why does the word Aaron need 2 A's?
This is coming from a person who's got Matt with 1 T.
Yeah, but you only need 1 T. Why does Matt need 2 T's? Just take your superfluous A and get through to the quarterfinals. Tishbola.
Yeah, onto the knockouts, the bit we've all been waiting for.
Right, who's the first quarterfinal?
So the Group A winner was Jolien Lescott, who was playing the runner-up of Group B, who was Andre Moreira. The other quarterfinal was the A runner-up, which was Alexander Tonev, and he is playing Ross McCormack. So the winner of Group C was Charles Nzogbia, and he's playing the runner-up of Group D, who was Aaron Tishbola. Or Mika Richards and Danny Drinkwater.
Go on then, let's decide the first quarterfinal.
So that would be Tonev versus Ross McCormack. What I will say about Tonev is at least Ross McCormack didn't get done for racial abuse whilst trying to resurrect his career. Like
Wow.
that's a winner.
What's your gut feeling, Matt, when you see those two names next to each other? Apart from feeling sick.
My gut feeling is that probably McCormack, but I want a bit of variety in the final stages of this competition. I don't want it to be all the big
Classics.
seeds getting through. I want, you know what I mean? I want some kind of third world nation to strike a blow for the common man, really. So
you want to do some match fixing?
I'm not
basically.
I'm not saying that.
He's going to do a Suarez handball on the line to just prevent the result.
What I'm saying is, yeah, I'm thinking Ross in this one. I am thinking Ross, but I'm not saying the big boys are going to get through in the following cup ties.
So you're going Ross, and James, you've gone Tonev.
Yeah, so you're the deciding vote, man.
I'm going to go Ross McCormack, just because of the hype and the hope that we're about to build a side that was going to get us back to the Premier League and be an absolute dud.
Yeah.
I'm just going to chuck him in there as the worst club statement for a player leaving the club.
27 words it was.
What, is that what it
27
was?
words.
Someone sent it to me. It was like one line. The club has come to an agreement to terminate his contract. Thanks, Ross. Bye, was basically it. So just for the best exit statement that I've seen, I'm going to go Ross McCormack as well, through to the semi-final 2-1. Second quarter-final, Joleon Lescott versus Andre Moreira. Two players head-to-head here for two very different reasons.
This shouldn't be as difficult as I'm making it in my head, but Moreira was genuinely crap. But Lescott, I remember being not excited by his signing, but it seemed like a decent move, at least a semi-decent move to make. And he wasn't. He had the Richards problem of being. He had the Richards problem of being fairly all right until the wheels completely fell off. Whereas Moreira was just crap all the time.
See, I look at that and go, I agree with what you're saying, but there's just if you said what are your memories of the squad of the year that we went down. I just think Lescott every time he epitomised how rubbish we were that year, and all the off the pitch stuff with the comments after we went down and the car tweet, and I can't get into the car tweet again on another.
But he was
podcast,
worse off the pitch than on the pitch. He wasn't that well. He was bad. He played a part in the first Villa team to get relegated for a generation. He was supposed to be one of the senior players and didn't really show any leadership, but other than that, he was all right.
I'm trying to cast my mind back, but I think I've erased memories of that year, of the actual on the pitch stuff. I couldn't tell you whether he had any good moments at all. I just seem to remember him just clumsily walking around defence and just looking uninterested all the time and just being annoyed with him all the time.
The problem with Lescott and Richards is not necessarily just their ability, but I think they got found out very quickly by the fact that the rest of the team just wasn't playing, so they became the focus. Because A, they're the two centre-backs, and B, the whole team is getting played through, so they're the focus of every single goal. Every single goal that Villa got hammered by that season went through them. So there was a lot of focus on them, and as much as Gay and Veretout and everyone else went on to succeed, those were the guys who were meant to be giving, or the strikers who weren't giving any pressure. They were meant to be kind of taking the pressure off of Lescott and Richards, who just had so much to deal with, and eventually just gave up. Completely gave up.
What's it say for the minnows, though? If we're trying to rig this, what's it say for the lesser nations? I'm up there for them. We're going with Lescott.
Oh, you got to go with Lescott, surely. Tasty semi-final ahead, by the way. Ross McCormack versus Joleon Lescott. Stay tuned for that. Quarter-final number 3, Charles Nzogbia versus Aaron Tishbola. A clear winner there for me, I think.
It's Nzogbia without a question, isn't it? When he's hyped like the best one of the best dribblers in Europe, and he comes in, I think the only dribbling he did was on his pillow, sleeping. Genuinely, there's just nothing going on, man.
Oh, goodness me.
Matt wants to put Tishbola here through as the underdog. I can feel it, but I'm not having it. I can't.
I don't mind Nzogbia going through. I mean, I think the thing that I find strange about Nzogbia is, for quite a high-profile guy, he'd kind of played for Newcastle, hadn't he? And he'd had the kind of joke in here. He'd called him Charles Insomnia, hadn't he? And he was a big name in Premier League terms, for a couple of years. He's just disappeared off the face of the earth since then. So I think I'll justify getting him through just so he can have a bit of attention again. Because what's happened to him? Didn't he go to Sunderland and train with them for a little while?
I think that's in that Sunderland till I die thing. It's just he's mentioned in passing as having turned up. and then they just never see like. Just
Sounds like
never hear him again.
And Dogby turned up for a bit, but we'll just ignore that. Forget it. Last quarter-final then. Mika Richards, Danny Drinkwater.
Very tempted to put Drinkwater through. Very, very tempted.
Just for bants.
It just honestly, all you can say about Drinkwater, it just goes down to the expectation, the transfer window, the context of the signing, and the punch. Like, at least with Mika Richards, there is some level of. At least he says he tried. You know what I mean? At least he says, I was injured and tried and tried and tried.
But, and obviously we're still in a position where we don't even know if football's coming back yet. Danny Drinkwater hasn't had enough time to show that he is decent. Like, if we've got 10 games left, if and when those get played and Danny Drinkwater scores 3 goals and we stay up and we've put him through to the final of the worst player ever, is that too harsh? We already know what the rest of the guys they've been and gone and had their Villa careers, and we know the full story, or we know most of their stories. Danny Drinkwater, yes, so far it's been unfit, looked slow, looked off it, and punched somebody or headbutted somebody or whatever he did. That's bad, but he could still potentially redeem himself. Is that fair?
Richards couldn't redeem himself though, could he? Like that's the issue. Is if we want Drinkwater to redeem himself, and I hope he does, because I want every player in a Villa shirt to succeed for their career and for Villa's sake. But
good caveat.
Richards didn't have the opportunity to redeem himself because of what he'd went through.
Fair.
Which is a big issue, because if you're saying, oh, he's crap because of that season, again, it comes to that Lescott thing of, this is the guy that everyone had to rely on. When Gabby weren't turning up, this is the guy who had suddenly the entire Villa world come crashing down on him. Everyone else kind of managed to shrug it off, where Richards is really stuck with that stink.
Is Drinkwater going to redeem himself though? How is he going to redeem himself? What's he going to do? Grow long hair and a moustache and change his name and come back as Eddie Eat Food or something like that? Do you know what I mean? He's done, isn't he? He's done. This has all been thrown out of sync, mate. My chances of rigging the competition have just disappeared. So I don't really care now. I just want to get through to the end. I don't mind which one you vote. They're all a bunch of wasters anyway, aren't they? To be fair.
Go on, Dan. You have a choice then. You choose.
You've got to put Richards in there, I think.
Didn't Richards do the old Zulu sign?
Yes, he did. He decided he didn't know what it was.
Oh yeah.
There we go. He deserves it then.
Yeah, send him through.
Thanks for that contribution, Matt. Semi-finals. Obviously, we don't need to talk about all these players' careers at length again now, as we're approaching 50 minutes of recording. We've kind of gone through it. So we've got semi-final.
And another thing about Carlos Sanchez.
Semi-final number 1. Ross McCormack versus Joleon Lescott. Semi-final number 2, Charles Nzogbia versus Mika Richards. We'll start with the first one, the early kick-off. Ross McCormack against Joleon Lescott.
In all these semi-finals, right, you got a really funny problem. Is they're all linked with Sunderland after leaving Villa, or after Villa got relegated. McCormack's actually the funny one, because in that Sunderland documentary you mentioned, like they pin their hopes on him joining, and I'm like, why would you do that? And they get really upset that the move fell through. And I think you dodged a bullet there. I think we send Ross McCormack through.
Don't you think it's strange that you've got a situation where you've got somebody in Joleon Lescott who's got such a grasp, so high tech and so clued up about modern technology that he can tweet using his buttocks, and on the other side, in the other corner, you've got Ross McCormack who can't open a gate. Do you know what I mean? Should we decide it in those terms, or do you want to decide it on what they did on the football pitch?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't think I can separate these two.
Nah.
It is difficult. If it was Ross McCormack versus Mika Richards, I'd be kind of excusing the Mika Richards relegation thing with the, he fronted up to the fans against whoever we played in that cup game, and he was injured, so that's not his fault, and it wasn't his decision for somebody to pay him 80 grand or whatever it was, like, and give him 5-year deals or whatever, how long we were stuck with him. That none of that was his fault. It's just he was a victim of circumstance. Joleon Lescott, he did bad things off his own back. I say bad, like he's not killed anyone or anything, but in football terms, he did some silly things and said stupid things. And obviously Ross McCormack had off the field problems as well. So
what I would say about Lescott, I think everything he tried to do was either A, to cover his own back, or B, to fix the situation, and it would just constantly blow up, like Tom and Jerry, like just constantly getting worse. Like everything he did, he was like chasing his own tail all the time, just like trying to fix the last thing what he'd cocked up, and it just got worse and worse. And like the last thing he says is, and I can completely understand why he said it, it's like relegation, it's a weight off our shoulders, it's over, we've committed, we've sank it. What came out was, oh yeah, it's a weight off our shoulders, and like that's the little voice bit that goes out. And if you say it, and it does get taken without context, but if you say that in such a drastic situation to try and fix things, it just gets worse. And I don't think he had the understanding of that. Fans weren't able to take on his context because he never presented it, like the tweet. The tweet just goes out and he's never able to present it in a context. He just goes, oh, it was accidental. But that he doesn't give the context to frame the situation, and he never did that and just constantly made things worse. I think the effort to try and fix things at least goes in his favour, whereas Ross McCallback weren't asked.
Jolie Lescott, since the relegation, he's always on Sky. He's always on various things popping up out of nowhere going, oh, I was a Villa fan and now they hate me and blah, blah, blah. So I'll do one, mate. No one cares. So I'd put Lescott through to the final is my vote.
I don't know on this one. Can we do it in alphabetical order?
Lescott wins.
That's good enough for me. I'll go Lescott.
Are you going Lescott? Well, James, you going McCormack, but you don't. You outvoted, so it doesn't matter. So Jolie Lescott makes it through to the final. Semi-final number 2, Charles Nzogbia versus Micah Richards.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Nzogbia. At least Micah Richards, there was no transfer fee.
Is it Micah or Micah?
I'm sure it's Micah, but I keep saying I switch a lot, and I'm sure he said it's Micah.
His body let him down, didn't it? You're too young to remember. I want you to Google this, either now or at a future date. Have you ever heard of Whizbit?
Whizbit?
If you Google Whizbit, he's a cartoon. It was like this kind of character, this children's TV character when I was a kid. He's like this big yellow triangle. Have you seen it?
Yeah. I'm looking at it
now. Where's this going?
Well, my theory is that Micah Richards is a bit like an upside down Whizbit, where all of his upper body strength is kind of being concentrated to this point of his legs. And I think eventually, because he was such this beast, I think his legs gave in. I think he would have loved to play football. I think he'd have loved to kept what was a very impressive career going by playing for Aston Villa. The thing that really annoyed me is why when we knew that his body was spent, how there couldn't be some agreement, with 18 months, 2 years of his contract left, there couldn't be some agreement grown up between the club and the player to say, okay, we're not going to pay the whole lot, but we can pay you half of it or whatever. Because it just kind of exacerbated the situation. The more he was there, and we heard people saying, oh yeah, he's great around the dressing room. You're thinking, listen, that's a very expensive cheerleader.
I think Richard's worst problem is he probably wanted to desperately fix what had happened on the pitch, or at least kind of put himself in the shop window by playing, and he was never able to.
So are we saying that Charles Nzogbia beats Micah Richards in the semi-final?
I think so, just for effort, because at least with Richards there was kind of the sense of effort, or the sense that he probably wanted to do better, whereas Nzogbia was just happy to just coast.
You saying that as well, Matt? Do you agree?
Yeah, whatever. I'm hungry, mate. I'm so hungry. We're doing this at the wrong time.
The big grand finale for the worst Villa player in the last decade all comes down to this.
Habib Bey.
Charles Nzogbia versus Jolie Lescott, 2 titans of the game, going head to head in the award for the worst Villa player of the last decade. What's your gut reaction before we get stuck into the hows, whys and whats?
My gut reaction just does say Lescott, to be honest.
Yeah, same.
Lescott just constantly stuck in a circle, sticking his foot in his mouth, and was never able to get out of it. And I think kind of his explanation for it, at least he offers an explanation, but he's in a worse situation than just being a bad player or a below average player. So yeah, I do think it goes on Lescott, and I don't know, because this all sounds really harsh now. I'm declaring him the worst one. I feel a bit sorry for him now.
What's your gut saying, Matt?
My gut's saying, can feed me, basically. I think with Lescott, I think he qualifies for several reasons. I think he qualifies because he did play a part in... I think he ticks a lot of the boxes, to be honest. He did play a part in Villa's worst season for a generation that got him relegated out of the league. He was actually one of the senior players with Premier League experience, so he was expected to be a leader within that. Previously, he was in pretty good form for West Brom. I think he was their player of the year, although it is telling that Tony Pulis was prepared to let him go. And I think... So there's that's even before we talk about this kind of, this tendency to shoot himself in the foot. So I do think, let's layer it on. Let's give him a proper kicking. And like you said, when he's been on doing punditry since, he's kind of almost giving it the kind of, Villa fans didn't like me. Well, yeah, there's a reason for that. Isn't there? There's a reason for it. We lost 6-0 to Liverpool, and it was shocking. And you tweeted a picture of a flash sports car. We got relegated with a shocking defensive record, and you were at the centre of that defence. I think it's almost the kind of refusal to take responsibility for that, even several years on. So I don't know. I don't want to kick the bloke when he's down, but
you have anyway.
yeah, he's been terrible.
I think looking at the two, we've kind of, by a kind of chance of luck, we've ended up with the kind of beginning of the decline versus the end of the decline, with Charles and Zogbia being the fresh signing of, here's 10 million on a winger that probably should perform better than they did, but ultimately doesn't do a lot. And Villa lose out a lot of money, but ultimately Villa don't suffer too much of a result of Charles and Zogbia's lack of effort. Joleon Lescott comes through as a free agent to kind of, I don't know, give us something at the back, a bit of leadership, if nothing else. Steady the ship. We've been on years of decline. Hopefully this is a sign that can give us a little bit of something, but his lack of effort and his lack of ability results in Villa going down, and there is an actual real impact to him being a rubbish footballer. So as much as Charles Zogbia makes it all the way to the final because he's also a terrible footballer, I don't care too much about him. He kind of disappeared into the sunset, didn't he? That I don't see Charles and Zogbia talking about us on TalkSport anymore. So I've kind of just forgot all about him. Whereas Lescott keeps popping up here, there, and everywhere, and it reminds me of how much I hate him every time.
Hello? Yes?
I really hate that man.
That's me watching Joleon Lescott whenever he pops up on Sky. I really hate that man.
Just had somebody on from Portugal, a bloke called Tiago, saying Lescott's a great player. He really rates him.
My vote goes to Joleon Lescott. Are we all unanimous on that decision?
Absolutely.
Yes. Give him the prize.
Before we started, we kind of thought maybe we'll do a top 5, but we decided to do this massively long-winded effort to get to a final. I thought this was going to be like a 15-minute episode, and we've hit an hour somehow. But now we've kind of been left with a top 4 with the semi-final. So the top 4 worst players from the Aston Villa's last decade are Ross McCormack, Joleon Lescott, Mika Richards, and Charles Zogbia. Is there any glaring omissions there? Is there anyone that you feel is unlucky not to have got to that stage? Going back through.
Unlucky not to have got to the worst.
Tanev probably dodged a bullet, because if he'd come up against someone else like Moreira, he'd probably end up being the final.
I think Bakuna not even getting to the quarter-final is very lucky.
Do you know the worst thing about it? That we've not exactly been sport for choice, have we? Do
I
you know
know,
what I mean?
yeah.
I've probably used this analogy before, but it's like trying to find the smallest of the 7 dwarves, and trying to find the worst Villa player from the last 10 years. You know, how bleak is it that we've had all these options, and we probably could have had a round of 32 or a round of 64, to be honest, because without trying to have delusions of grandeur as an Aston Villa fan, and rival fans will say we're giving it the big one and stuff, but some of the players that Aston Villa have signed and then subsequently kind of banished in the last 10 years wouldn't have been fit to wear the shirt of many vintages of Villa teams that I've seen down the years. So it's pretty bleak, to be honest. So fair play to the winner. They've had to go some to achieve that, haven't they?
Also, if we were doing the best player of the last decade, I think you'd struggle to even think of 20 contenders for that.
I think we just have to reverse engineer this, wouldn't we? And go back to the group stages and just pick one from there.
I think you'd probably get maybe 4 or 5 players that you think, they are decent, like a Benteke and a Grealish and people like that. Whereas you get to the bottom of that 20 list and it'd be somebody totally random that isn't even that good, because there isn't a standout 20 very good players. So in a time where everyone's a bit negative and there's a lot of rubbish in the world, it'll be difficult to do a positive episode of the best players of Aston Villa, because there isn't enough. Whereas with the worst of Aston Villa, like you say, we could have gone a lot bigger than 20. So it's quite bleak, really. But I've had a laugh. I've enjoyed myself for the last hour. Have you two had a nice time?
Lescott won't be having a laugh, will he? Poured all that weight back on his shoulders.
If you've enjoyed this episode of Claret and Blue, I didn't think this was going to be a podcast episode, because I thought it'd be a lot shorter, but it is long enough to be a podcast now. So if you've enjoyed listening to our rambles of the worst Villa player from the last decade, let us know what you thought. Get involved in comment sections and on Twitter and Facebook and all the rest of it to let us know if we were right with our winner, whether anyone was harsh to not get not get through to the latter stages. There's probably names that we've missed off even the list of 20. So do get involved with us and interact with us on Twitter and social media and all the rest of it. Thank you to Matt and James for joining me this afternoon, and we'll see you again soon with another great content idea where we think of the title before we think of the episode. Thank you very much, and up the Villa.
Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, up the Villa.